What if I told you that one of the most loved donut brands in America, famous for its melt-in-your-mouth glaze and neon sign, has been fighting for survival for almost its entire history? Despite being adored by millions and even doubling sales in recent years, Krispy Kreme is still struggling to stay profitable. How can a brand people rave about, one that literally sells happiness in a box, be so bad at making money? Today on Behind Brand Success, we're diving into the story of Krispy Kreme, the donut empire that should have dominated the world, but instead keeps tripping over its own glaze. And I'll break down 8 powerful reasons why this brand can't seem to rise as high as its donuts do in the fryer. Let's be clear, people love Krispy Kreme. For decades, their donuts have inspired cult-like devotion. On the surface, this company has every advantage: a beloved product, nostalgic branding, and nearly a century of history. You'd think by now they'd be standing shoulder to shoulder with giants like Dunkin or Tim Hortons. But instead, every time Krispy Kreme seems on the edge of breaking through into that national powerhouse status, everything falls apart. And right now, things are looking more uncertain than ever. Yes, sales have doubled since 2017, but profits? That's another story. In 2021, they went public for the second time, launching at $21 a share. Fast forward to today, and that stock has lost over 80% of its value. Their dividend? Paused. Investors? Angry. The brand? Still struggling to figure out how to survive in a brutally competitive market. So why can't a company with so much love and demand ever seem to keep its head above water? 1. Moving too slowly. Krispy Kreme's story began in the 1930s, when founder Vernon Rudolph purchased a secret yeast-raised donut recipe and opened a small shop in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. This predates Dunkin' Donuts, Tim Hortons, and nearly every other large-scale donut chain. From the beginning, Krispy Kreme had a head start. Yet instead of aggressively expanding nationwide, the company remained concentrated in the American South for decades. By the time the 1990s arrived, Dunkin' Donuts had already established thousands of stores across the country, while Krispy Kreme operated only around 100, mostly in the Southeast. Remaining a regional brand isn't inherently a mistake. Many companies thrive by focusing on a specific market, but if the goal is to become a major national competitor, timing matters. And by staying small for so long, Krispy Kreme allowed rivals to entrench themselves in new markets. When the company finally began pursuing broader expansion, it was no longer the pioneer, it was the challenger. This slow pace of growth squandered Krispy Kreme's early mover advantage and created a pattern the brand has struggled to shake off ever since. 2. Expanding too quickly. Ironically, after decades of caution, Krispy Kreme suddenly shifted gears in the 1990s and expanded too aggressively. Under CEO Scott Livengood, who took leadership in 1998, the company pursued rapid growth across the United States. At first, the strategy appeared brilliant. Krispy Kreme developed a cult-like following in new markets, with customers lining up to try the hot, fresh donuts they had heard so much about. But this burst of popularity masked deeper problems. The novelty factor quickly wore off. Once Krispy Kreme became widely available, it lost some of its exclusivity and excitement. Worse, the speed of expansion meant stores weren't always placed in the right locations. Some markets became oversaturated, while others were neglected. Reports surfaced that Krispy Kreme was even loaning money to struggling franchisees to keep them afloat, a sign that demand in many areas wasn't strong enough to justify the number of stores. In short, the company overextended itself. What began as a bold growth plan soon turned into a costly miscalculation. 3. High operating costs. A major reason Krispy Kreme has always faced steeper challenges than its competitors is the complexity of its business model. Unlike Dunkin' Donuts, which can fit into smaller spaces and focus heavily on beverages, Krispy Kreme built its identity around fresh donuts made in store. This experience was part of the appeal. Customers could look through glass windows to watch the donuts being glazed and fried, guided by the famous hot now neon signs that signaled when fresh donuts were available. It was immersive and unique, but it was also expensive. Opening a Krispy Kreme location requires more machinery, more space, and more maintenance than a typical Dunkin' or Tim Hortons. That means higher costs, lower flexibility in site selection, and greater difficulty competing in dense urban areas where smaller footprints are advantageous. Today, Krispy Kreme operates about 350 U.S. locations, Compared to Dunkin's nearly 10,000, that disparity highlights just how much harder it has been for Krispy Kreme to scale its fresh-made model in a cost-effective way. 4. A risky distribution model. In recent years, Krispy Kreme has tried to offset its limitations by pivoting to a distribution strategy called Delivered Fresh Daily. The idea is simple: use existing stores as production hubs, then deliver donuts to partner retailers like grocery stores and convenience outlets. On paper, this strategy should dramatically increase availability and sales, and it has, at least in terms of revenue. But profitability is another story. Unless demand is exceptionally high, the costs of daily delivery can outweigh the benefits. The Walmart partnership illustrates the challenge. Krispy Kreme donuts were distributed to thousands of Walmart stores, but without the in-store theater of watching them being made or smelling them fresh, much of the magic was lost. Customers picking up a box of donuts alongside groceries didn't feel the same emotional connection. A more high-profile attempt came in 2024, when Krispy Kreme announced a deal to sell donuts at nearly every U.S. McDonald's by 2026. But after a test run at about 2,400 locations, the deal collapsed. Demand wasn't high enough to make the arrangement worthwhile. The fallout even sparked a class action lawsuit from investors who claimed executives misrepresented the expected demand. If even Walmart and McDonald's can't make your distribution strategy profitable, the viability of the model itself comes into question. 5. The accounting scandal. Krispy Kreme's first IPO in 2000 raised $63 million and briefly made the company one of the market's hottest stocks. But only a few years later, serious problems surfaced. In 2004, regulators discovered that the company had manipulated earnings reports to make performance appear stronger than it really was. The Securities and Exchange Commission launched an investigation, lawsuits piled up, and the company was forced to restate several years of financial results. The scandal sent the stock price plunging, damaged investor trust, and left the company's reputation tarnished. CEO Scott Livengood and other top executives were eventually dismissed and fined. The leadership vacuum that followed only deepened Krispy Kreme's instability, setting the stage for years of inconsistent strategies and missed opportunities. 6. Leadership instability. Since the founder's death in the 1970s, Krispy Kreme has suffered from a revolving door of leadership. New owners, executives, and boards have implemented conflicting strategies, often abandoning the plans of their predecessors. The result has been decades of inconsistency. Even in 2025, the company continued this pattern when both its chief financial officer and chief growth officer resigned within months of each other. For a brand already struggling to rebuild credibility, this lack of stability has been another obstacle to long-term success. 7. Poor investments. Bad investment decisions have haunted Krispy Kreme for years. One of the most infamous came in 2003, when the company acquired Montana Mills, a northeastern bakery chain, for $40 million. Less than 2 years later, Krispy Kreme sold it for a $34 million loss. There were also questionable franchise acquisitions during the same era, where conflicts of interest raised concerns about overpayment. More recently, Krispy Kreme has spent heavily to buy back franchise stores in order to support its Delivered Fresh Daily strategy. While this move has boosted reported sales, it ties directly to a strategy that remains financially uncertain. In short, Krispy Kreme has repeatedly poured money into ventures that failed to deliver lasting value. 8. The health factor. Finally, there's the unavoidable issue of health. Donuts are indulgent by nature, high in sugar, fat, and carbs. While no major donut chain can claim to be a health brand, competitors like Dunkin and Tim Hortons have diversified into coffee and other menu items. Dunkin even officially dropped donuts from its name in 2018 to emphasize its broader focus. Krispy Kreme, by contrast, has remained almost exclusively identified with donuts. Their official mission statement is to make the most awesome donuts on the planet every single day. But this single product identity leaves them more exposed to changing dietary trends. In the early 2000s, for example, the Atkins low-carb craze swept the United States. By some estimates, nearly 9% of Americans were following low-carb diets. Krispy Kreme cited this trend as a key reason for declining sales in 2004. While it wasn't the only factor, it certainly intensified their challenges. Put it all together, and you see the picture. Krispy Kreme isn't just battling competition, it's battling itself. A mix of poor timing, costly decisions, failed partnerships, scandals, and a product that's tough to scale profitably has kept this beloved brand from becoming the powerhouse it could have been. And here's the kicker. Sales keep climbing, but profits remain elusive. It's proof that popularity doesn't always equal success in business. So, what do you think? Do you still love Krispy Kreme for the taste, even if the business is struggling? Would you pick them over Dunkin or a cheaper store brand donut? And most importantly, do you think Krispy Kreme can ever rise again? Or are they destined to stay a cult favorite that never breaks through? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. Thanks for watching Behind Brand Success. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around for more stories about the rise and fall of the world's biggest brands.